Here's what's coming up on Network Africa. At least 22 United Nations peacekeepers injured in retreat from northern Mali base. At least another 20 are believed to have been killed, 10 others injured in surprise raid by separatist gunmen in western Cameroon. And South Africa recalls all diplomats from Israel over Gaza war. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Joke Rogers in Lagos. At least 22 United Nations peacekeepers have been injured in northern Mali after their convoy was hit by 2 improvised explosive devices as they continued their withdrawal from the country amid deteriorating security. The UN says there have now been 6 incidents since the peacekeepers left their base in northern Kidal on October the 31st to make the estimated 350 kilometers journey to Gaza. At least 39 peacekeepers have also been injured. In June, Mali's military rulers ordered the nearly 15,000-strong peacekeeping force known as MINUSMA, or the UN Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission, to leave the country. The withdrawal is expected to be completed by December 31, despite the deepening conflict in the West African country. From one attack to another, but this time to a surprise raid by Anglophone separatists in western Cameroon, where at least 20 people were killed. 10 people were also reportedly injured in that attack, but are being treated in hospital. According to local government officials, Viang Mekala, the gunmen attacked the village of Egbeko, a neighborhood in the town of Mamfe, setting houses on fire and killing men, women, and children as they slept. Mr. Mekala says that the situation is under control as security forces were searching the area. He also urged the population not to panic. English-speaking separatists have been fighting to carve out an independent state called Ambazonia in western Cameroon. Armed groups have clashed with government forces and carried out attacks. Kidnappings and killings in the region have also taken place since 2017. Now to our coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. South Africa says it's recalling all of its diplomats from Israel, making it the second African country to withdraw its envoys over the war in Gaza. The country's international relations minister, Naledi Pandor, says the recall of South African diplomats from Israel was standard practice in instances where a situation is causing a great deal of harm and concern. Ms. Pandor said that the government was extremely perturbed by the ongoing killing of thousands of Palestinian children and innocent civilians by the Israeli Defense Force. She was responding to questions following a cabinet announcement on Monday morning that the government was withdrawing its representatives in Israel amid heightened tensions with Palestinians.
Why recall our embassy officials? This is normal practice. When there's a situation which is causing a great deal of harm and concern to a country, you would get your officials to come back to the national setting in order to provide you with a full briefing so that you can make a determination as to whether there is any potential for you to be of assistance and whether the continued relationship is actually able to be sustained in all terms.
A genocide under the watch of the international community cannot be tolerated. Another Holocaust in the history of humankind is not acceptable. And the South African government has decided to withdraw all its diplomats in Tel Aviv for consultation. The position of the ambassador of Israel in South Africa is becoming very untenable. Cabinet has decided to instruct DECO to take necessary measures within the diplomatic channels and protocols to deal with the conduct of the ambassador of Israel to South Africa.
Let's get more on this. Our South African correspondent, Innocent Samosa, joins us now for more. Hello, Innocent. How are you doing today?
A very good afternoon to you, Joke, and our viewers.
Yes, so South Africa says it's recalling all its diplomats from Israel over the war. What does this mean for both countries' relationship going forward?
Well, Joke, as we speak, you and I right now, the challenges in Gaza continues. And we heard from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, there saying that Gaza has now is now a graveyard for children. And he called this a collective punishment. In fact, he also mentioned that the journalists who are essentially dying because of this conflict, they are, caught in the crossfire. So, South African government, the relationship, I guess it muddies the situation, Joke. In fact, I put it to the minister in the presidency during the AGOA summit. I asked her about the relationship between South Africa and the United States, given the geopolitical differences when it comes to issues of conflict. For example, you would remember that the issues around Russia, Ukraine, South Africa decided to take a non-alignment stance, which in many respects, people thought that South Africa stands with Russia. At this point in time, this Palestine, Gaza, Israel, South Africa says again, they're standing with Palestine. They're saying that this has to stop. They're calling for ceasefire. So when I put this question to her, Joke, she said to me, in fact, she didn't want to answer the question. She brushed it off. She said to me, South Africa and America is like, they're in a relationship, it's like husband and wife. When they have differences, that does not necessarily mean that they have to divorce the following day. So she said that they have differences, but that doesn't mean that they cannot work together. But I guess there's more than what meets the eye. I guess there's something behind. The lines now are no longer blurry. We can see that South Africa and America, they really don't see, they really have different views when it comes to geopolitical matters in the world. Hence, I guess that's why she really did not want to delve much into the situation. But I guess also, Joke, it in a way puts the country in a very precarious position when you look at trade and investment, because there were issues around whether or not South Africa's participation in AGOA should be extended. So there were other bodies, other organizations in America that were calling for South Africa not to host the AGOA summit. So in a way, it does look like the relationship is slowly deteriorating, Joke.
Right, and so today marks exactly a month since October 7th, Hamas attack, on Israel, and there have been retaliatory attacks on Gaza, which is, what we're talking about extensively, which has seen so much death and destruction. Minister Pandor, as you said, that it's global practice, the global, is the thing to do where there's, war, to pull out your diplomats. But do remind us, of South Africa government's position on this war. We know what they said about the Russia, Ukraine invasion and where they, stand on that. But this is clearly taking over, media coverage. So do remind us of, what the South African government's position is concerning the war between Israel and Hamas.
Yeah, in fact, okay, so South African government, they came out to condemn Hamas, what they did on the 7th of October. But on the other hand, now it seems as though they feel that what Israel is doing is not justifiable. Hence, they feel that, in fact, Minister Kumbuzo Nchaveni, when she was addressing members of the media in that cabinet media briefing, she said that they feel that this is a genocide. In fact, they feel that it is a collective punishment. So they say that what Israel is doing is, in many respects, not justifiable. They're calling for a ceasefire. But first, they also condemned what Hamas did. They're saying they're not putting Hamas in to say that they've done something good. No, they're saying that they've done something wrong, but it has to come to an end at some point. They feel that Israel has been going on with this bombing campaign for quite some time. In a way, they feel that it has to come to an end. So at the moment, Joke, from where I'm sitting, South Africa is pro-Palestine. They're backing Palestine. They're asking Israel to essentially stop this thing. They're calling for a ceasefire at this point in time. So it does look like, there are different voices here in South Africa also, Joker, when looking at the political, the political terrain. The main opposition party in South Africa, the Democratic Alliance, is backing the Israeli government. They're saying that Israel is protecting itself. But on the other hand, the ruling party says, no, you cannot protect yourself while you're destroying civilians, you're destroying, hospitals, you're destroying shelters. So those are differences that we currently are seeing at the moment, Joke.
And this being more precarious because we understand that, a South African is among the 3 Africans who are being held by Hamas. Do you have any update on this situation?
Well, as we speak, I think a moment ago, the minister was addressing members of parliament in the National Assembly. She is giving a feedback as to what is it that she should do there. And since you would have heard that the presidency is now advising her to deal with the ambassador of Israel to South Africa. So, and also recalling the South African delegates in Israel. So in a way, she will give an update as to what is it that they're going to do moving forward, and also details at the moment as to how many people are trapped in how many South Africans are trapped in Gaza, and how many of them have to be repatriated. It's still sketchy. There's no official statement from the Department of International Relations as to how many people are stuck there and how are they planning to essentially take them back to South Africa. I guess she is currently giving those details in Parliament, addressing members of Parliament as to how to move forward in terms of repatriation. I know that report says it's 1 person, but it could be more because we don't have the details at this point in time, Joke.
Right, and talking about those evacuations, following up on who might be trapped, we do know that some of those corridors that they're trying to open for evacuations, such as the Rafah border crossing, they're only open to maybe some severely injured people and people with national passports that are not people from Palestine. So how are they being able to follow through on how to move South Africans that are trapped in Gaza through to Egypt so that they can actually be flown home?
In fact, the Department of International Relations, Joke, was inundated with so many questions from members of the media. And it seems as though they do not have answers at this point in time. But we understand that President Joe Biden had a call with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And later on, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was on an American channel where he was quite adamant that this whole thing is continuing. In fact, he says that he wants to annihilate Hamas, but now they're bombing civilians. So it does muddy the situation if you look at it, Joke. But also, it makes it difficult also, as you've indicated, to repatriate people, to take out people, as we've heard earlier now, that they've at least allowed some more trucks with humanitarian support to actually go to the south. But also, that is not enough, because we're told that the bombing campaigns is continuing, people are being harassed, but this is just the information that we're witnessing on social media. It's not really, we don't know whether or not the source is certified or not, but we've been seeing, where there's bombings everywhere, which makes it difficult also to people to move to the south and essentially move to another border where they can actually get people to be repatriated. Joke, it does become a little bit challenging for us as journalists, to really come up with information when information is sketchy at this point in time from the Department of International Relations. Joke.
Right, Innocent, thank you for the updates there right from South Africa.
Thank you, colleague.
Here in Nigeria, the Senate has urged the federal government to collaborate with other countries to call for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas conflict. The lawmakers equally urged the United Nations to revisit the issue of a two-state solution as a proposed framework for resolving the conflict. This followed an extensive debate after a motion moved by Senator Abdul Rahman Kawu from Kano South that the emerging figures of death and displacements from the war is horrendous. In the meantime, Egypt is feeling the impacts of the war in Gaza on its tourism sector. Egyptian Tourism Minister Ahmed Issa says the country is offering incentives to shore up its tourism industry as some travelers are cancelling or postponing holidays. Mr. Issa said Egypt was offering an extra $500 of incentives for flight landing in Sharm el-Sheikh and working very closely with wholesalers, retailers and airliners to keep them committed to Egypt. The country is also hoping for a boost from the vast delayed Grand Egyptian Museum next to Giza Pyramids, which was expected to open officially between February and May next year.
Is on the customers who have bought the regional products, because the tourism sector in Israel is actually practically shut down. So this is where we're seeing the most significant impact. But in the grand scheme of things, the overall size of bookings, that represents less than 10% of the total number of bookings in Egypt. We're seeing some delayed reservations for the second half of December. We haven't seen any cancellations so far, or any significant cancellations in the European market. But we're working very closely, as I said, with the value chain, wholesalers, retailers, and airliners to make sure that they continue to stay committed to the Egyptian product. And at the same time, we're hearing from them that as people realize that geopolitics and that the Red Sea resorts are far and away from what's happening in the region, we're seeing significant escalation again to the normal levels of the reservations for the season December to February. Well, my colleague, the Minister of Civil Aviation, is working actually on trying to privatize some of the services across the Egyptian airports. There are several private sector groups, local and international, who have expressed interest in partnering with the Egyptian government in managing the airports, taking the efficiency to the next levels, improving the shopping experiences and so forth. We're installing about 200 pieces a day today in the showcases. We're finishing the last touches of the audio guides and I think at the rate we're going to have some sort of a soft opening, hopefully before the end of this year. The official opening day is going to be set over the coming couple of months, but most likely it's going to be between February and May.
Elsewhere now, at least 10 people have died in the aftermath of floods caused by a heavy downpour in Somalia. The government of Somalia has declared a state of emergency after devastating floods displaced over 11,000 people in the country. This is a shocking disaster to hit the East African country that has battled its worst drought for more than 30 years.
More than 113,000 people have been displaced by floods caused by heavy rains across parts of Somalia. The heavy downpour also temporarily affected hundreds of thousands. Fadumo Abdulkader is staying at an internally displaced persons camp, and she recounts her experience calling for help.
It is raining on us for the fifth day. Lying in the rain killed 2 elderly women. Our makeshifts were washed away. Children are missing now. We do not know whether they are dead or alive. We request the aid of agencies to urgently help us.
The rain comes a year after Somalia suffered its worst drought in 4 decades.
There is quite a big irony around people fleeing for the fact that they don't have water, and now fleeing because they have too much water. And so it's a real dichotomy or problem that we're seeing. And the IPCC report quite clearly says that this cycle of flooding and drought is going to continue. And we're going to see this more and more unless we really do something on a global scale to try to reduce these and try to stay on this Paris 1.5 alignment.
The United Nations says the drought, combined with violence and a rise in food prices caused by the war in Ukraine, has killed as many as 43,000 people.
The Black Sea grain deal appears to be making the news again, with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba hinting that he sees no encouraging indicator about the revival of the deal. Speaking at a press briefing in South Africa, Mr. Kuleba said Ukraine will focus on alternatives to the Black Sea Grain Initiative, such as increasing exports through European land routes.
On other issues. So
I don't see any encouraging indicators about the revival of the Black Sea Grain Initiative. We focused on 2 alternatives. The first one is increasing the capacity, increasing export capacity by land routes through Europe. We see the biggest potential in the route that will take our grain to ports in Romania, Bulgaria through the territory of Romania.
And finally, this year marks the 25th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between China and South Africa. Chinese President Xi Jinping met with South African Deputy President Paul Mashatile in Beijing, saying that the bilateral ties between both countries has entered a golden era. Mr. Mashatile conveyed South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's greetings to President Xi and expressed his country's willingness to strengthen economic and trade ties with China.
Your Excellency, I bring warm and revolutionary greetings from His Excellency President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. We thank you for accepting the highest order bestowed by His Excellency President Ramaphosa. This honor for us signifies your contribution to people and party to party, as well as economic relations. We thank you for making us a guest of honor at the Expo, from which we hope to strengthen economic and trade ties further.
That's our program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joke Rogers.